Hi everyone, we're gonna go over 2.4. What I'm gonna do in this video is go over the whole notes page that I gave you. But if you want to go over a specific problem, you can always move the video and just watch the part that will help you, because these are the same notes that you have on the notes page on Blackboard. So what I want to go over is something like this. Now, if you have something like this, if you bought the Casio that I told you to buy, the F115, you can just put it in your calculator. I am not going to be too picky about this because I do want to focus on other things, but I would just put it in my calculator and you can see that it gives me the answer. Now, if you don't have the Casio and you're working with this is how you would do it. First, you think of the square root of 100, which is 10. And then anytime you have a negative inside a root, you bring it out as an I. So like, for example, this one, it says evaluate the expression of negative 25. The real number A equals, so the A is the real part. The B is the imaginary part because it's the one that's going to have the I. Now, what you're going to do here is first you figure out, you simplify it. So again, you can put it in your calculator, or you can say the square root of 25 is 5. The negative gives you an I. Now, as you can see here, you only have that part with the I. So that's your B. So that the B is this one. And this one would be 0 because there's no A. There's no real part. So the real part is 0. And the number next to the I is always your B. So that would be a 5. Don't put the I because they just want the real number that B equals to. And then over here, express this in terms of I. Same thing, if you put it in your calculator, you get 12I. If you don't have a calculator, you can put just the square root of 144, and that gives you 12. And then the negative inside the root, you put an I. Evaluate the expression in this form. Well, there's things here. Again, it's 5. And then you bring down the I. That's your B. If they want the whole thing, you can write it like that. This is also the same thing. When you are trying to add or subtract complex numbers, it's like subtracting, like if you had an X, combining like terms. So for example, to get rid of parentheses, there's nothing in front of this one. So I'm just going to copy it as it is. When there's a plus, nothing changes. So it stays the same. And then I just combine like terms. So now it'll be this one and this one. 8 minus 2, that's 4. That one and that one, that will be minus 14i. So the A is 4 and the B is negative 14. I'm not putting the I because they're just asking for A and B. Now this is another one you can just put in your calculator, but I think it's just more work than it's worth, to be honest. So if you're going to plug in a complex number, see, like I'm typing so much. I just prefer to do it by hand, but you can see if you need to type the I, make sure that your mode is in complex and just type the I like that. I think it's a lot more work than it is to do it by hand, but you do have the option and you would click that. As long as your mode is in complex, you should be okay. So these ones are the same thing. We're just going to combine like terms. I'm going to ignore the parentheses and combine like terms. Now when it's minus, it's subtraction. This one stays the same. But this one, you are going to change the signs. So you get this one minus that one. Negative 5 plus 4, that's negative 1. Negative 8 plus 6i, that's negative 2i. And this one, they ask us for the A and B. So we still solve it and then just write the numbers. So again, this one is going to change the signs here. So it's going to be negative 8 minus 6i. And then minus 4 plus 6i. To change the signs inside. minus 12, and then the negative 6 and the plus 6 cancel each other out. So the A is negative 12, but the B is 0. There's no I left. I would suggest that you pause the video now and you work on these two, and see if we can get the same answers. So I'm not going to talk, I'm just going to solve them, and then you can compare your answers to mine. You see that I do need to change the signs there. Then I'm going to do negative 16 minus 21. So those are the answers. Check with yours. And if I didn't write a lot of steps here, but you can see how I worked them out, and hopefully you can find if you did any mistakes. This one can be, you do have to simplify the radical first before you do any additions and subtractions. So for this one, it will be 14 minus the square root of 100 is 10. The negative inside gives me an I. Plus negative 11, the square root of 144 is 12, and the negative gives you an I. And because it's plus, I don't need the parentheses. I'm just going to combine like terms. 14 minus 11, 3 minus 10 plus 12 plus 2. This one is a subtraction. So again, you simplify first, and they're the same numbers from the other problem. And now the minus does change the signs. You can see that I didn't write the parentheses on this one. And that's just because I know that there's nothing in front of it. I only wrote this parenthesis because this minus changes the signs. So then it would be plus 11 minus 12y. And once I do that, then I can combine like terms, and I get 25 and minus 22y. So then we encounter this again. I do suggest you stop the video here. Not stop it, just pause it. Don't leave. Just pause it and work on these, and then we can compare answers once I finish mine. And you can play. So again, this is a plus, so I don't really need the parentheses. I'm just gonna combine like that. Minus 34 plus 7. When it's a minus, I do need to change the signs. So I combine the 12 and the 22. 10 and it's positive, and then once again, I do want to remind you, you can put this in the calculator, but I think it's a lot more work. Now, if you struggle with the signs like positives and negatives, that's something that you may want to consider working on. Like putting it in your calculator instead of just working it by hand. Okay. Now, these ones are a little different. We're going to multiply. Once again, the rule is you simplify them first, which means you take out the I first. So it would be I square root of 3 times I square root of 75. Now what I'm going to do here is, well, first of all, this is another one you can just write in your calculator, and I'm going to allow you to do that for this section. You can just do that. Just make sure you take it out, and then you put times the square root. The details of the calculator are on the syllabus. I think it's the F115. It looks way different now, but I'm hoping that we can have all those conversations on the Pronto app already. So by the time you get here. So it says it's supposed to be negative 15, the answer. So let's Let's see how that happens by hand. So first, the I and the I is I squared. I squared is always -1. So you should always know that. The I squared is always going to be -1. Okay, now we're going to do that. So if I'm going to do it by hand, I'm not going to multiply them out and get a huge number. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the two numbers and try to do the prime factors. The 3 doesn't have any, but the 75 does. I can do 3 and 25 and then 5 and 5. So this one has a 3. So these are my numbers. The numbers I have are 3, 3, 5, and 5. If you're saying, where did you get those? I'm saying this 3 was highlighting a while ago. This one highlighting. It's this 3, this 3, this 5, and this 5. Now, any pairs you can take out as a single number because, like, if I put these two together, 3 times 3 is 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. See? So, any two pairs of the same number I can take out by itself. So, it's 3 times 5, 15. Now, 15, but don't forget that we had the I squared, so the I squared gives you a negative. So, you have 15 times -1, so that gives you -15. So I hope that helped. You still have questions on these, let me know. Now let's try this one. This one is already in imaginary form and it doesn't have the roots. So it's a little easier. You're just multiplying 8 times -10, that's -80. And I times I is I squared. Now remember that the I squared is -1. So that gives you 8. Ooh, this one. This is multiplying complex numbers to binomials, right? So you're going to do it as if it was binomials. If you know how to use the FOIL method, that's what it would do. You would use the FOIL method. If you do distributed, you can do distributed, any of those. If you struggle finding those, then I'm going to show you how I do them with the box. I think that's the easiest way to go if you've been struggling with the FOIL method all these years. Now, once again, I do want to remind you, you have the option of putting it here. But knowing how to multiply binomials is important for the class itself. So the method that I'm going to show you is not only for this type of problem, but for problems down the road that you will not be able to use calculator with. So remember that if you're just going to go with a calculator for this one, that you still need to know how to multiply, either use FOIL or distributed or whatever. So the answer should be 5i. I'm going to show you how I do it by hand. So what I do is I'm going to create a box like this. And then I'm going to put my numbers. So it's 2 minus I, -1, 2i. And then I'm going to multiply. 2 times -1, -2. This one and this one go there. -1 times -I, that's just I. 2 times 2i goes here. And then 2i times -I is -2i squared. Now, if you know how to use the FOIL method or distribute it, sometimes it's just easier to go that way because the box can get confusing for people who already know how to do it. But if you do not know how to do it, this is a really good method that avoids careless mistakes easier. So think about that. You don't have to do it this way as long as you know how to do it somehow. Okay. So now I'm going to write them in with pluses if they're positive, with minuses if they're negative. And then I'm going to combine like terms. So I get these two here, and that's 5i. Then this is -2. And now this one here, remember the I squared is like a -1. So negative times a negative becomes a +2. The -2 and the +2 cancel, and I'm left with just 5i. The method of multiplying binomials, which is multiplying 2's and 2's, is very important for this class. Not necessarily for this one because you can use a calculator, but for problems that we're going to see later on. Multiply. This is similar to the one we saw here. So if you thought that this one was giving you problems, this is another example here. that we can do. Now, if you feel like you're okay, then this is the time to pause the video, try to do them by yourself, 15 and 16, and then come back and see if you got them correct. Now, if you're still struggling, feel free to stay and we can work on them together. So once again, I am going to say the i's. So it's I square root of 5 and I square root of 180. And the I squared, which is going to be a -1. So we know we have that already. Now I'm going to take care of the numbers. The 5 stayed as 5. Now the 180. I wonder why the highlight sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. I have no clue. Okay, 180, maybe 90 and 2. So the 5 stays, the 2, 90, 9, and 10. Doesn't matter because you're going to keep breaking. Doesn't matter which numbers you pick because you're going to keep breaking them up until you can't break them up anymore. So you don't have to do 90 and 2. You can do 6 and 30, any number you want. As long as at the end, we're going to end up with the same numbers anyway. 3 and 3, 2 and 5. So what I'm going to do now that I have them all broken up is look for pairs. Any pair of the same number, we will put them together and take them out. Now here, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. The 5, 3, 3, 2, 5, 3. Okay, so the 3's come out. Look at the 5's. There's 2 5's here, so I can take out a 5. And then there's 2 2's, so I can take out a 2. And then I multiply everything. And that's going to be 30. And remember you had 2 i's, which was I squared. So that's going to be times a -1. So that's negative. And just to make sure we got it right, let's put it in the calculator. Don't forget to get out because you're supposed to have 2 square roots separated like this. There we go. Okay, and then this one, again, 2 and 2, so that means I use a binomial. I'm going to use the box. -2 minus 3i, -3 minus 1i. And then I'm going to multiply, so that's 6, 9i, 2i, 3i squared. So now I'm going to take them out of the box. Any positives stay as pluses. And then any negatives will be a minus, but in this case, we don't have any. Okay, so then these combined to form 11. And then this is going to be a -1, so that's going to change that to a -3. So that's 3 plus 11i. And I'm going to get the calculator and check that I did it correct. Yeah. This one is one where you just have one number, so you don't have to do the box, you just multiply them like this. So that's going to give you -60i minus 20i squared. But every time you have the I squared, it's a -1. So -60i plus 20. Well, one of the things I wanted to go back here, it asks you for just A and B. So you would say A is 3, B is 11. And now this one is another one with a box. So again, this is another good spot to pause the video and work on it. And then we can compare answers. So I'm going to create my box. Then I'm going to multiply. 12 times 6, 60, 12, 72. 48i. 36i negative. And then this is going to be 24i squared. Now I'm going to take them out. These combined to 12i. And this one, this is a negative, so it's going to change the sign there. And then I subtract those two. 72 minus 24, 48 plus 12i. I'm confident on my steps. I am not so confident on my arithmetic. So let's check it out. Once again, I want to remind you that I'm clicking on this here. You can see the little I up there. And as long as your mode is complex, it will work. So, oh, look at that. See, this was a negative, so that should have been a negative. So that changes this to an addition, and that gives us a negative 96. See, almost missed that negative right there. That's what the answer should look like. Now here is one that has a square. So the square just means that you have it twice. So you're going to do it very similar to the one we just finished. Same number twice. So I'm going to do my little box. Again, now I just show you the setup. This is a good place to pause it, work on it on your own, then come back and see if you got it correct. Sorry that I don't talk, I get focused on the problem, but you can see that I did the box and multiply. If you use the distributed method, then you would also do the same thing. I'm going to take it out of the box. The 60s combined to do 120. This is a negative, so that's going to change to 144. And then I'm going to do 25 minus 144. Negative 119 plus 120i. Now let's double check to make sure that we did it correctly. I'm trying to get you into the group that we. You're probably screaming at me if I make a mistake. Like, no, that's not the way you do it. No, it's correct. You're probably screaming, yeah, don't get me into this one. I saw your mistake. Okay, this one it says, find the product of this one and its conjugate. Ooh, what is conjugate? Okay, the conjugate of a number, of a complex number, is basically changing the middle sign. So like for this one, the conjugate of this one would be 5 plus 8i. You see the first number stays the same. You're just changing that sign in the middle. If this one was a plus, then you would put a minus there. Now what they're asking us to do is multiply them. So I'm supposed to find the product of those two. Again, product, that's what we'll be doing with the little box here. If you do FOIL, it's fine too. But since we're going to do that and you already should know how to do it, you can pause the video, work it out on your own, and then come and compare your answer with mine. Okay, so I'm going to take it out. I get that. The minus 40 and the plus 40 are going to cancel. So you get 25. This I squared changes this to a plus 64. So this is going to be 89. Now you always have the option to do the calculator in these, just like I'm doing here. I'm not going to be checking a lot of work for these ones, but remember that you do need to know how to do some form of multiplication of binomials. And also in these, especially the ones that I tell you to pause the video and come back and check, I do go over them a little bit quicker, but if you are working at home and the video is not clear enough for you, please send me a message and say, Miss, I'm working on this. Send me a picture of the problem. It's a lot easier for me to answer you quicker. Miss, I'm working on this one and I saw the video, but I thought you went kind of like I couldn't understand. Can you explain it again? And I will for sure do it again for you. Okay, this one is division. Now on division, it's going to be a little bit different than simple divide that we know how to do. So I'm going to set it up here as a fraction. Like that. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to multiply by the conjugate of the bottom. So the conjugate of the bottom is -8 minus 7i. See, I'm keeping the -8 as it is. I'm just changing that middle sign right there. And then you do two boxes, one for the top and one for the bottom. And then you combine them, and that's your answer. So I'm going to do the top. A little small. Let's make a big box. That's the top, and I'm going to multiply that, and I get 88 times 8, 704. 36 times 8, 88. 88 times 7, 616. And then 36 times 7. So when I take him out of the box, oh, I forgot this one had a 9. These two combine because they both have i's. 288 plus 616, 904i. And then this one, because of the I squared, that becomes a minus. So it's going to be 704 minus 252. 452 plus 904i. That's the top. Now I need to do the bottom, so I'm going to just keep going here. And then we'll come back and work on that one. So here it will be 64, negative 56i, 56i, 49i squared. So when I take it out, again, the negative 56 and the 56 are going to cancel. So now I just have 64. The I squared changes that one to a plus. So 64 plus 49. 113. So now we're going to put them together. Each of the numbers is going to get a 113. And then you simplify if you can. So most calculators will do the simplifying for you regardless of which one you use. So that's a 4. That's an 8. Now this is this is the top, the bottom. So this is how we have it. That's going to be the answer. You can also put them in the calculator. Like for this section, I'm not going to mind you do most of it in the calculator, as I am going to mind for other sections later on, but I will let you know which ones. So then if I put, see, you see the answer. I didn't work on that one because we kind of ran over the space. Now on this one, simplified, where there's a whole bunch of negative ones that are just i's. So it will be I divided by n times I. So what we end up with is I divided by I squared. The I squared is a negative 1, so that's a negative I. Again, you can put it in the calculator. I don't know if it's going to be more work than it's worth, but if you want to put it in the calculator, you can set up your fraction. Just make sure that you always take out when it's a separate square root. See? This one, even though I didn't work out on this one, it's the same thing as this one over here. So this one, just get the 8. When you just have one number on the bottom, the conjugate is just I. So the conjugate of a single number is just going to be I. So you're going to multiply everybody by I. So it will be negative 3I minus 3I squared divided by 8I squared. Remember that the I squared gives you a negative. So it will be plus 3 minus 8. And then you can just either leave it like this. Well, I will leave it like that. Oh, they want it separated. So since they want it separated, you do have to separate the 3 over 8I. And then 3 over negative 8 like that. So this is a positive. Now the number with the I is your B. The number with no I is your A. On this ones, when you have a higher power, you can put it in, I think you can put it in the calculator. I will show you how it's derived, but let's see if you can actually put it. Yeah. So what happens is there's a pattern to follow here. I is just going to be I, but I squared, we know it's negative 1. I to the third can be broken up into I squared times I, which is negative 1 times I, that's just negative I. I to the fourth can be broken up into 2I squareds, which is just 1. So all of this to say you can have either I, negative 1, negative I, or 1. And then after that, it repeats. So like I to the fifth would be just I to the sixth would be negative 1. Now the way you do this is dividing by 4. It's kind of like using remainders. You only know up to here. And then if you get 16 divided by 4, that gives you 4. You're looking at the leftover. And I'm doing the division like a old-fashioned division. So you're looking at this one. If you get 0, it's 1. If you get 1, it's I. If you get 2, it's negative 1. If you get 3, it's negative. Again, if you can do it with the calculator, go ahead and do that. But that's how you do it with the pattern. You also have the answers here on the bottom that you can always check. So this is the section. I hope it helped. If you have any questions, please let me know.